Now, I'm probably best known for desktop CNC machines and making tutorials on them. However, when it comes to larger CNC machines, there's not much I can do because I simply can't fit one in this workshop. So late last year, I made the decision to take on another workshop in order to host a bigger CNC. And when I say big, I literally mean a machine bigger than a desk. This is the LongMill 4830, and today I'm going to give you an overview of this machine and my experience of using it for the last 6 months. So let's cover off the obvious question, why have I got the LongMill? Well, I typically review machines under $2,000, and whenever you see that price range come up in CNC groups and forums, I can guarantee that this is going to be one of, if not the most popular response to that question. Not only does it fit within the existing budget, it is a very popular machine, and also a lot of people that I know that have upgraded from smaller machines, this was their machine of choice. So it just made sense for me to get this in my workshop. So let's talk about some of the numbers for this machine. Now, it comes in 3 different sizes. There is the 1230, the 3030, and also the 4830 that I obviously have in front of me at the moment. Now, what I find very strange about those numbers is they don't actually relate to the sizes of the machine or the size of the work area. It is pretty peculiar in terms of the CNC world. Now, I can't remember all of the work area dimensions off the top of my head, so I'm just going to put them on screen now. But it is worth just remembering that the actual numbers don't represent the work areas of the machine. Now, the good thing is about the different sizes of the machines is they've got a chart on their website that not only lists the size of the work area, it lists the size of the overall footprint for each one, and even extra details as well, such as if you want to build an enclosure, it tells you roughly the size that you would need to do that as well. So actually they cover off quite a lot of detail as part of the different sizes for the machines. The one thing that is consistent across all of them though is the Z height travel. This has, I think it's 125 millimeters worth of Z height travel, so that is quite a lot, and obviously means you can do quite deep projects with it. In terms of what's driving all of these axes, they are NEMAT 23 stepper motors, so you've got quite a bit of juice going on with those in order to drive this machine around and running. The other thing I should also mention is when you go up to the larger version that I have here, the X extrusion also gets bigger, and it is a beefier lead screw as well. So they don't just extend the length of the parts that they are using, they are being scaled up in proportion, obviously, to give it more support. Some people are probably going to question, is there any flex in this rail? Now, these are customized aluminium extrusion and they are really strong. I did a very basic test where I pretty much tried to put all my weight on the rail, short of taking my toes off the floor. I am nearly 17 stone, so that is quite a bit of downward pressure being applied to this. It only moved 0.8 millimeters. That is a tiny amount, and most of that, if I'm honest, is probably been absorbed by the polymer rubber wheels that are on these V-tracks. So if you have concerns about the flex of this rail, honestly, get them out of your head because it is super strong. As I just mentioned the V-wheels, let's cover off a quick question that I know will come up. How do they wear over time? Well, here's my experience. So when you build this machine, you have to set the pressure of those wheels yourself. The best advice I can give is just make sure there's no rocking going on within those plates. Now, when you start to run your machine for the first time, you will get black residue being left on these rails. It is ultimately the wheels bedding themselves in and shaping themselves to the profile of this metal. Now, after I'd ran this for a couple of hours, I actually noticed the amount of black residue being left was minimal. And 6 months on, well, there is hardly any wear on these wheels. Don't get me wrong, I am not saying these wheels do not wear down. They obviously do. It's not at a rate that is concerning though. If you are running this 7 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're probably going to see wear much quicker, as you would with any other type of part on a machine such as this. But 6 months on, I don't need to change these. I haven't even had to tighten up the eccentric nuts to apply more pressure. So I'm pretty comfortable that these are going to endure a long time. In terms of the composition of the frame, I've already mentioned that these are aluminium. The silver rails that are going on, the end plates holding everything together are steel. So it is an all metal frame. There are a few 3D printed parts, such as the feet underneath those, just to give it extra support. Now, when it comes to building this, it is what's called a full DIY build. Now let me explain the difference. If you have seen my previous videos on smaller desktop machines, they often come largely assembled, where you've only got to put a few components together to get the machine built. With this, pretty much every nut and bolt you have to do yourself, with the exception of the Z assembly that comes pre-built. Now this is one of the ways that they keep the cost down, is ultimately get you to build the machine yourself. Now whilst it does take a bit of extra time, you're probably talking half a day to a full day, the joys of this is you actually know this machine inside out. You know where every bolt is, you know what tensions you've done them to, so ultimately you are much more confident with this machine knowing that you have built it yourself. And if you are worried that a DIY build may not be right for you, there is a link up in the corner to my build video for this machine, and you can actually see just how easy it is. As long as you take the time to square everything up, you will sail through in getting this assembled. A trim router is the typical device of choice on these machines. It comes with a 65mm holder that is suitable for most trim routers, except the DeWalt, which is a 69mm, so do bear that in mind. You can buy the Makita with this machine, or you can obviously purchase your own separately, as there are lots of different models available that will ultimately fit this. Now the 65mm holder will also take a 1.5 kilowatt spindle, which again, this is capable of running if you wanted that extra power. You could fit a 2.2, but you would need a larger diameter holder in order to take that. So I would probably say either stick with a trim router or a 1.5 spindle on this machine. Now in terms of what is it capable of actually cutting, well, pretty much everything. I probably should have a list in front of me of this, but it's going to do your softwoods, your hardwoods, your MDFs, it's going to do your acrylics, your composites, your plastics, and a whole bunch of other material that I probably can't remember. Metal, well, sort of. There's a bit of a caveat whenever it comes to metal on machines like this. They are not primarily designed for machining metal. If you're going to do the odd piece of aluminium or brass here and there, then yes, it probably will handle it. But if you're planning to machine a lot of metal, then this will not be the machine of choice for you. The newer LongMill is probably the type of thing you're looking for. So as I say, yes, it can do some metal, your soft metals, but I would not buy this as its primary purpose for cutting that. So, what projects have I been doing on this machine? Well, I can't really hide this one. This is probably the largest project I have done to date so far, albeit it's smaller parts, however cut out on larger sheets that pretty much take up the full size of the bed. Now there'll be a video out on this in the future, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but ultimately the point being is you have a larger machine, so you can utilize that space to do larger projects. But actually, just because it's a larger machine, most of the projects I've actually been doing have still been smaller size, such as signage, 3D carving, some cast acrylic block molds for people, and a whole bunch of other jobs. Now, the thing that I've found very nice about this is, yes, it's a larger machine, but actually the detail is still there in the smaller jobs as well. Because of things like I mentioned earlier about having such a solid X-axis on this, even though it is a wider machine, you're still going to get that fine detail when doing things like 3D carving, when trying to do fine text carves as well. So yes, it's a large machine, yes, you can do large jobs, but actually it's quite versatile in what you can actually produce on it. Let's take a few seconds to talk about customer support and service. Now, you want to know that is there from the moment you purchase the machine, sometimes even before you purchase the machine. Now, I don't really have any major stories to tell about this machine and anything going wrong. One issue that did happen is when this all arrived, there was a bracket missing for the limit switch. Now, I messaged them. Within a week, a new bracket was on my doorstep. Just to put that into scale, that's come from North America all the way over to the UK and arrived within a week. So I was super happy with that level of service. The other great thing I like that I've since found out after getting this machine was when you purchase it, they will send you all the latest information about the machine and the instructions and how to assemble it, things you need to get ready beforehand. So ultimately, you're going to have the latest information for the machine sent to you directly, ready for when everything arrives. And it is just that kind of service that I've really enjoyed about CNC so far. Let me quickly talk to you about the electronics. Now, don't judge me for this jumble of wiring that we've got going on here. I meant to tidy all this up and get it into an enclosure. I've just never gotten around to it, but it's actually worked in my favor because I can now show you everything much easier. This is their custom built control board for their machines, the CNC Longboard. Now, the reason that this is a super advantage is because they know every component, every inch of that control board, and it just means they can support their customers so much better than if they had done something like gone to a third-party device where they're purchasing in the control board. So I really can't stress how great it is that they actually do this and supply their own custom boards with the machine. Now, what I should highlight note as well is this is actually now obsolete. This is the original Longboard. There is a super Longboard, and if you're purchasing a machine at this moment in time, you're going to get the new version of it as part of the 2.5 upgrade, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. Now, the device behind it is the power supply. I don't have any gripes with this machine except this one. They only do this power supply in 110 volts. So in other words, if you're in North America, great, you're covered. The rest of the world, however, we're not covered because we all run on 220. Now, they cover all of this on their website and make it very clear. But what it does mean is that if you're outside of North America, you've got to purchase something like this, which is a down stepper or down voltage. And it will take it from a 220 to a 110 in order to run your LongMill. As I say, they do make this very explicit on the website. I do, however, just wish they would provide the option to have a 220 volt for, as I say, the rest of the world who are interested in these machines. Now, when you're purchasing a machine, you cannot overlook the software aspect of the setup. Now, the LongMill uses something called Gerbil, which is basically the language that it talks in. Now, fortunately for us, that is free and open source, so it means there are lots of pieces of software compatible with this machine, both free and paid for. Now, on the design side, it's going to work with all your most popular pieces of software that you may have heard of: Easel, Carbide, Create, Vectric VCarve, Fusion 360, and my personal favourite, Carve Code Maker. It is just the best value for money. On the control side of it, where you're running the machine, again, there are lots of free versions of software out there, such as UGS, but actually CNC make their own software called G-Sender to run this machine. It was the first time using it, having set up the LongMill, and I have to be honest, I've really enjoyed it. Now, there are a few features inbuilt specifically for the LongMill that are just going to make things much smoother. For example, if you're connecting an XYZ probe to this machine, the settings are already pre-built in there for this, so there's no fiddling about with measurements and calibrating. It is just all built in. So really what I'm trying to say is you're covered on every aspect of the software with this machine. Free, paid for, as well as controlling, especially if you're using the G-Sender software. Now, in terms of accessories and add-ons, you'll find a full list on the website, but you can expect to see things such as these Y-axis dust guards that go in here to protect the lead screws. Now, the reason I don't have them on is because ultimately I do like to see the lead screws, and it also makes it easier not to have them on for maintenance reasons. But actually, it's because I'm using the dust shoe all of the time now on this machine. This is a fixed Z dust shoe, which literally means the dust shoe stays in the same place no matter whether the spindle is going up or down. It's the first time I've used one of these, and it's actually been brilliant and very efficient. I've got a 3D printer. I probably need to make some sort of adapter instead of using gaffer tape, but I've just got used to using that now. They also make some different types of probes, a bog standard XYZ probe and a more complex one that can help you find the corners on more complicated shapes. So a couple of choices there. They also have a fourth axis available called a vortex. Now, this is a huge fourth axis. It looks amazing. I actually have it underneath the bed. I've just not got around to using it yet, but you will see that on a future video. But ultimately, as I say, the full range you can find on their website. Now, up until this point in the video, I've mainly been talking about the components of the machine and what it's capable of. But it's now time to be honest about my actual experience in using it. But the first honest thing I need to do is apologise to CNC. This review should have been out a long time ago, and I'm sorry it's taken so long. But the benefit to this, I've actually been able to test it over a longer period of time, which is something that I don't actually get a chance to do. It's always very condensed windows. Now, has it been a flawless experience? No. There have been 3 or 4 issues that have come up along the way. Why am I saying it with a smile though? Because every time I've reported these issues back to CNC, their response has literally been, yes, we already know about it. Yes, they're already resolved. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is technically obsolete. This is the Mark II. You can only now buy the 2.5 version. And the issues that I've come across have already been fixed in the version that you can purchase today. Not only that, but they also sell the components to older customers to keep their machine up to date and get rid of any of those issues. It really is refreshing to see a company so dedicated to driving their machine forward and so dedicated to keeping their customers happy. And if you're wondering what the issues was that I raised with them. First was the instructions being out of date. I somehow managed to find an old copy. That is why you will now get the instructions emailed to you with the latest relevant version when you order. The second was some issues with the anti-backlash nuts. Those have now been resolved with the new anti-backlash nuts on the 2.5 version, and the other one was to do with some electronic issues with the e-stop, and again these have all been resolved in the new Super Longboard. They're still pushing for improvements. For example, the V-wheels I mentioned earlier, they're trying to find a new composite to make those out of to make them even more durable. So it really has been a positive experience, not only using the machine but actually dealing with CNC as well, and also being in the forum and seeing the level of customer service that comes from that team. Now, are there some things I think could be tweaked or improved on this? Minor things. For example, the limit switches. I actually think they're a little bit bulky, especially the one on the Y-axis. It sticks out. I've already caught it several times, but nothing that I actually think is alarming. So if you have $1,800, $2,000 and are looking for a larger scale CNC machine, this should definitely be at the top of your list, and I can genuinely see why it's so popular with users and across CNC forums. Now obviously I'm going to continue using this, so if you have any questions about it, then do let me know. There will be some links in the description area which will always take you to the best available prices for the machine. I should also apologise, I'm getting over a cold, so I've been more nasally than ever during this video, but thank you very much for enduring it. Final thanks as always goes to my patrons, and I will see everybody on the next episode.